Sean Connery's life away from the camera was as compelling and untamed as the men he played on screen. He lived boldly, loved freely, and rarely looked back. Yet for all the romances, fame, and chaos that followed him through Hollywood, one woman never truly left his heart. Long after breakups, distance, and decades of silence, her presence lingered. When Connery finally spoke about the woman he could never quite forget, it revealed a deeply personal chapter few ever saw. Long before the world knew him as James Bond, he was simply Thomas Sean Connery. He grew up in Edinburgh, where friends called him Tommy, and later Big Tam. Even as a boy, he stood out. By 12, he towered over his classmates, and by 18, he had reached his full, imposing height of 6'2". He came from a working-class family where survival depended on grit. His father worked in factories and drove trucks. His mother cleaned houses. Money was always tight, and everyone pulled their weight. Sean learned that lesson early, delivering milk through the cold Edinburgh mornings before he was even 16. What he didn't have was a clear sense of direction. He worked constantly, jumping from job to job, but his future remained uncertain. Even so, his confidence with women came early. Years later, he would openly admit that he lost his virginity at 14 to a woman serving in the Auxiliary Territorial Service during World War II, an experience that left a deeper mark than he realized at the time. Though too young to fight in the war, Connery was eager to serve. At 16, he joined the Royal Navy, embracing the discipline and routine. He quickly got 2 tattoos, one for his family and another reading Scotland Forever. He trained at gunnery school and served on an anti-aircraft crew, looking every bit the hardened sailor while still a teenager. For 3 years, it seemed the Navy might define his life. Then it ended abruptly. A painful duodenal ulcer forced his medical discharge. Barely out of his teens, he returned to Edinburgh with no plan and no safety net. What followed sounded almost unreal. He drove trucks, worked as a lifeguard, polished coffins, and even modeled nude for art students. Through it all, one obsession never faded. He trained relentlessly, sculpting his body and entering bodybuilding competitions. He never reached the top, partly because he refused to give up football. He loved the game too much to let it go, even when it cost him a competitive edge. His talent on the pitch did not go unnoticed. At 23, he was offered a chance to play for Manchester United. For most working-class kids from Edinburgh, it would have been a dream come true. Connery considered it carefully, then turned it down. Football careers were short, he reasoned, and he didn't want to be left with nothing once the cheers faded. It was a decision that showed a level of foresight rare for someone his age. Around the same time, another door opened. While training for bodybuilding contests, a friend mentioned auditions for a touring production of South Pacific. Connery auditioned and landed a role in the chorus. As the show traveled, he slowly worked his way into larger parts. For the first time, acting felt possible. It paid the bills and introduced him to romance. He began dating a woman named Carol Sopel, but her family made it clear he wasn't welcome, and the relationship ended abruptly, leaving Connery deeply shaken. He had grown up around hardship and violence, but one night would cement his reputation across Edinburgh. It began in a pool hall when members of the feared Valdor gang tried to steal his jacket. Known for sewing razor blades into their clothing, they followed him later to his workplace and cornered him on an upper balcony. Connery refused to back down. Trained in weightlifting and hardened by years of struggle, he fought back, grabbing 2 men and smashing their heads together. The rest fled. From that night on, no one bothered him again. Despite his tough image, Connery was deeply serious about becoming an actor. He spent nights reading Shakespeare, Ibsen, and Tolstoy. He took elocution lessons to soften his thick Edinburgh accent. Success came slowly. Throughout the 1950s, he took whatever work he could find: small theater roles, bit parts, television appearances, even babysitting to survive. Casting directors eventually noticed his rugged presence and began offering roles to match it. His first real breakthrough came opposite Lana Turner in Another Time, Another Place. Their on-screen chemistry sparked tabloid rumors of a real affair. The situation turned dangerous when Turner's volatile boyfriend, mob-connected Johnny Stompanato, flew to London and confronted Connery on set. When Stompanato pulled a gun, Connery disarmed him and knocked him down with a single punch. Stompanato was deported. Months later, he was dead, stabbed by Turner's teenage daughter during a violent argument. Rumors swirled, and Connery allegedly received a warning from Mickey Cohen himself to leave town or die. Connery didn't hesitate. He quietly disappeared until the danger passed. Not long after, he met photographer Diane Salento. At first, she found him crude and off-putting. Then she saw him in a Scottish kilt, proudly embracing his heritage, and everything changed. They fell deeply in love and built a life together in London. When Salento was diagnosed with tuberculosis, Connery turned down a major role to stay by her side. It was a career risk, but he chose loyalty. Their relationship ended suddenly years later after Connery admitted his feelings had faded. They parted quietly. During a later reunion, Connery told her that if he ever had a son, he would name him Jason in her honor. Soon after, Connery was introduced to the man who would change his life forever, producer Harry Saltzman. When the search for James Bond stalled, Connery leaned into his raw, working-class edge at the audition. It worked. He was cast in Dr. No. The role transformed him into a global icon. Fame followed quickly, and so did marriage, pressure, and strain. His first marriage collapsed under the weight of success. He walked away from Bond more than once, but was pulled back by unprecedented deals that gave him creative control and financial leverage. He used that power to support Scottish artists and pursue roles beyond Bond. By the early 1970s, Connery's personal life had grown complicated again. Then, in 1970, at a golf tournament in Morocco, he met Micheline Roquebrune, a French-Moroccan painter. She didn't know who he was. She only noticed his presence, his strength, his calm. That night, she dreamed she was in his arms. The next day, she sought him out. Their connection was immediate and intense. Despite a language barrier and complicated lives, their bond deepened quickly. After parting ways, they didn't speak for nearly 2 years. When they reunited in Spain, the feelings returned instantly. Connery admitted he had never stopped thinking about her. They endured distance, scrutiny, and the final unraveling of previous marriages. When they finally married, Connery once again chose Gibraltar, but this time the union lasted. They built a quiet life together, eventually settling in the Bahamas, far from the spotlight. Friends often remarked on their affection, even decades later. Connery aged with acceptance. Micheline remained the steady presence in his life, the one who endured everything. In his final years, as illness stole his voice and clarity, she stayed by his side. When he passed away peacefully in 2020 at the age of 90, she was there with him. For all the fame, controversy, and legends that followed Sean Connery, it was Micheline who remained, the woman he never got over, the one story that stayed with him long after the cameras stopped rolling.